Buy some land, buy some land. F spinning rims, buy some land. But there's some controversy over some land purchases that are happening. We want to address those and talk about what land is supposed to mean, because what it's supposed to mean is basically freedom. I love my big chunk of land. In fact, I got out on it and put a garden in the yard yesterday, and it was beautiful. But it's not always the most pure of intentions, most pure of motivations when we do that. But first, before we get into the story of Epic City, and then I'm going to talk about a couple of other controversial land acquisitions that are pertinent to the conversation, especially considering the habit of the lefties to pursue segregation and Balkanization. Before we get into that, though, we're going to touch a little bit on the elections from yesterday, and for that, I've got our analytics expert with us, Mario. Good morning, sunshine. Oh no! Oh shit! No, move your camera back just a little bit. See, now we're almost even in the. That looks good, right there.
All right, outstanding. All right,
great T-shirt, Hua.
Patrick Brown wondering, I don't know, there's like a, Patrick Brown says, I was wondering when you were all going to cover this. There's a lot going on in the news, but it's all kind of B tier, so it's not that simple to just pick a topic here. But anyway, so special elections yesterday, a Democrat, first of all, there was an election. All right, a special election to determine a seat for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Why there are elections to determine a seat for any state Supreme Court, I don't really understand. That seems like a bad idea, because it's now your Supreme Court selections are just nakedly political, basically being voted on by the populace itself. Okay, it's one thing if the Supreme Court nominee is being selected by, say, the Senate, okay, or the governor, right? Because at least with that, it's a representative, okay, government. Your representative government is selecting the candidate, or selecting that judge, right? When it's just direct democracy to the people voting for a Supreme Court justice, that adds a layer of politics, and it also adds basically a significant amount of money that's going to get spent on it. $81 million were spent on a race for a state Supreme Court seat. All right, $81 million, most expensive election ever for a state Supreme Court seat. I don't think that's smart. All right, but it's Wisconsin, so they have like multiple layers of negative continuity to have to filter through for anything in all manner of politics in that state, just because of years and years of Democrat abuses, okay, and years of feckless Republicans.
Well, and anyway, let's address this generally. The direct election, there's a place where direct election is appropriate, and there are places where it's not. The 17th Amendment was a gross attack on the founding intent, because the 17th Amendment created the direct election of senators. Yep. Prior to the 17th Amendment, the way it worked, we elected the president and we elected our House representatives. Now, it is still the case today that the president is the only, there is exactly one politician who is elected by the entire country. That's the president, right? He represents the administrative will of the people within the government. The senators, per the original intent, your 2 senators per state are selected by the people of the state, right? And then the representatives are selected by the state governments. I'm sorry, I've got that backwards. The representatives represent the people, the House of Representatives. Those are the individual districts of the states elect the person who's going to represent their district at the federal level. And you have your state Congress and your state Congresses as well, where you represent where you elect your representatives there. The job of the Senate is to represent the individual states, right? So people do business with one another within the states, and then the states do business with one another within the country. The House of Representatives is there to represent what the people require, and the senators that come from the states are there to hash out how those differing interests between the states resolve when states come in conflict, or when states need to make pacts, alliances, partnerships, etc., and do business with one another. The direct election of the senators took the voice away from the states. It essentially centralized what is supposed to have been a decentralized government. It was one of the first and most substantial attacks that destroyed state sovereignty in a country. Right? It was probably a mistake to ever refer to the United States of America as a country, because the country as we know it today, the United States of America, the original intent was for the several sovereign, distinct states, which are essentially and were essentially countries unto themselves, to be organized together. In fairness, it should be something more akin to what the EU claims to be. But in all fairness, what the EU is a bad attempt to copy what the United States was supposed to have been to begin with. So when Mario brings up the question about the direct election of Supreme Court justices, that just seems like a complete departure from the founders' tradition.
The founders did not trust democracy. Okay, the founders understood that there was a need for democratic institutions in the country, but basically the unrestricted control of leadership, all right, based on the whims of a fickle populace, was a bad idea and not to be trusted. They knew that. Okay, I mean, look at the United States. You have bad elections, and look at the catastrophic damage that occurs to the country. Okay, or even at the state level, when elections go wrong. Okay, when the people choose incorrectly. All right, in their ignorance. So,
oh, you mean
yes,
like Raphael Warnock?
Yes, like Raphael Warnock or Ossoff. Okay, basically, I all. I don't want to get into Georgia. You guys are experts on Georgia. You want to do that show? I'll be a fly on the wall. But yeah, I mean, like the other thing it did by direct democratic elections or the 17th Amendment, you dramatically increased the amount of money that goes into into candidates for the Senate. All right, and you dramatically increase the amount of like outside of the effect that the outside influence would have on the state's own decisions. Okay, so no, the 17th Amendment was a bad idea. It just happened so long ago that most Americans don't even know that it wasn't that way originally. Okay, that was arguably you see the 17th, 18th, 19th Amendment. Those took place during the initial progressive wave within the United States. So, and they were termed the progressive. That's where the word comes from, and it was largely the Democrat Party. But I don't want to get into it because I haven't researched it. Okay, but yeah, bottom line, increasing democratization actually decreases the effectiveness of your government. It increases political chaos. Okay, democracy is very fragile because it relies on the whims and emotions of the people themselves, which are, of course, subject to change, subject to the change of the political winds.
Well, another major problem with more and more democratization. This is something that the Democrat Party generally kind of relies on. Take a moment, do an experiment for me. The next time you're in the grocery store, go over to the potato chips aisle and pick out a bag. Stand there and stare at that wall of options. right? And you'll 1,000 different flavors and textures and configurations, and see how long it takes you to select a bag of potato chips, right? Like if you know that you want Fritos because you're having cheese dip, you can walk onto the aisle, grab that bag of Fritos. But if somebody says, "Hey, why don't you grab a bag of chips to snack on?" Walk your ass down that potato chip aisle and stare at that wall and see how long it takes you to make a decision on which bag of chips you want to buy. And then understand that every time an American looks at a ballot, they're looking at a potato chip aisle per seat, per question, per issue, right? They're looking at the potato chip aisle on that piece of paper. And I would be amazed. I would be absolutely amazed if 1 in 1,000 Americans, before walking into the voting booth, can tell me what's on the ballot and what they're voting for as they walk into the booth.
But they will
Right.
see the advertisement and like the promotional material,
Correct.
like at the start of the aisle, telling them what to buy. They'll see that, and I mean, it's sad how easily you can sway people's minds, but it's true. Most people are very basic. So what does this mean?
Yeah, if
What
I
does this
drive
mean?
past more than 7 McDonald's billboards, I'm going to have a fried apple pie and a cup of coffee.
Yeah, yeah.
Because eventually I'm going to have to pee, and they have a bathroom, and I feel guilty if I go and use a bathroom in a business.
Yeah, I'm not immune
Without-
either. I'm not
I have
immune
to
either. Trump's campaign stop at McDonald's, right? Before the election.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed a Big Mac, and I got a Big Mac.
The only thing that stopped me from going for a quarter pounder with cheese that day is that the closest McDonald's is a 45-minute drive.
Oof. Yeah, McDonald's ain't worth 45 minutes in the car.
No.
That's a fact. That's a fact. 45
No.
minutes. That's like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. I'll drive 45 minutes for that. But yeah. Yep. So, what does this mean? What does it mean for Wisconsin? Well, unfortunately, now the liberals hold a 4-3 majority. There's 7 total seats. Okay.
Yeah, I hope you like blue cheese.
Yeah, 4-3 majority. And then when the legislature goes back into session, they're going to draw basically redistricting plans. Okay, start doing basically gerrymandering. All right, where you basically carve out counties in just such a way, dividing up the people where you get the desired, where the person creating the districts gets the desired outcome. Okay, it's not entirely a Democrat like phenomenon. All right, Republicans do the exact same thing. Especially in places like, say, Texas, right, or Florida. We gerrymander the shit out of it, all right, just to give ourselves an advantage. So it's not a uniquely Democrat form of corruption, but well, what it means is that there's 2 seats for the 2028 midterm elections. There's 2 seats that are effectively guaranteed to now go Democrat. All right, which could sway the balance of power in the House of Representatives, which I believe correct me if I'm wrong, but the Republicans only have a 2-seat majority. Isn't that correct? And at least 5 of those seats are worthless Republicans who are willing to switch, vote across the aisle.
Correct.
And betray their own party, like at any given moment.
I'm actually not sure about that majority anymore right now. I'm not sure how many seats we've got right now. I know it's very, very slim.
Regardless, it's something like 51%.
I also know that it is even slimmer now because Trump actually grabbed some of the slim majority that we had and gave them cabinet appointments.
Well, that's why he put that's why he actually canceled the nomination of that Republican from New York. I forgot her name. It's a female. He was going to send her to the UN, but he put her back just to make sure they maintain the House control. Now there were 2 other elections in Florida, where for the House special elections. One was to replace Matt Gaetz's seat. Okay, and Republicans won both of those. One of those Republicans, Randy Fine, is the shittiest Republican in Florida. Okay, can't stand the guy. Like literally all he does All he does is lobby DeSantis to pass more pro-Israel bills because for Florida, what's in our best political interest is getting involved in foreign politics, okay, and bolstering an adversarial state, I would argue at this point. But regardless, so those two seats were won. But yeah, Wisconsin is the big one. What it means is that essentially Wisconsin is now going to be like Minnesota. It's gone blue, and it's never coming back. All right. Um, it's the blue cancer. Okay, basically just got a fresh injection of high fructose corn syrup, and it's going to start cauliflowering rapidly. So Wisconsin is effectively a blue state. It will no longer be a swing state by the next presidential election. I guarantee it.
Okay, so before we get into this next story, you guys who haven't already, you got to get on Rumble and go for that premium.
Hey,
we are. Go ahead,
Unverified
Mario.
Unverified figured out the time zone change. Yay, welcome back.
I saw you making a comment about that. It's good to see you back on the
Yep.
on the channel there, Bear. I'm going to do a quick plug real quick for 1775 Coffee. You know, one of the things, and we ask you to go to the Buy Me a Coffee link, but this is another way that you can help support the show. 1775 Coffee, weak coffee is for the weak. Y'all, Mario, you've been to war. You know what coffee is like at war. Coffee at war hates you, and it's the most delicious flavor of hate you can imagine. My wife and my parents used to ship me boxes and cans and crates of Kona and other high quality coffee. 1775 wasn't around back then, but 1775, no fillers, no fraud, no settling for mediocrity, just like 17.5 coffee. It's single origin, small farm, hand-picked, specialty grade coffee that stands for quality, free speech, and calling out BS when it matters. And I like 1775. You know, a lot of the conservative channels have been pushing the Black Rifle Company coffee. Well, they're veteran group, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, these guys are pro-veteran. They say forget the stale mass-produced bullshit. Dark roast hits like a Trump tariff. Medium roast keeps it bold without the bitterness. And the Vitality mushroom blend for real energy, lasting focus, etc. K-cups and all that. It's high-quality coffee. So, if you want to help out the show, we keep hot black coffee in these cups. You guys know me. For my health, I drink nothing but water and black coffee. So please, go to 1775 Coffee. And by the way, every dollar spent enters you to win a Cybertruck and $30,000 cash. So you can scan the QR code there and get you a bite of that. So that. I want y'all to check out the sponsors that's going to help YouTube die a slow death as Rumble grows off of sponsorships like 1775 Coffee. And Aaron Olson says it's not the Starbucks liberal burnt crap either. Y'all know I don't go to Starbucks, mostly because of they have the signs that say you can't wear a gun, and y'all, if I can't wear a gun while I'm drinking coffee, I'm not going to be there. So y'all take a look at 1775 Coffee, and let's get into our first primary story this morning. Texas AG probes controversial Muslim-centric development near Dallas. So, East Plano Islamic Center building and logo. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has launched a formal investigation into Epic City, a proposed Muslim-centric development in Josephine, Texas, approximately 40 miles northeast of Dallas. So Dallas is a blue cancer anyway. Maybe the most positive thing we can say for this is that, having a Sharia law city just north of Dallas, maybe it'll drink off some of the blue cancer, but frankly, the cancer is so deep and pernicious, it has metastasized to such an extent in Dallas that it may be unrecoverable.
I've got an unpopular opinion. Texas is a shithole. Okay, Texas is already done. It's basically California at this point. Okay,
Yep.
it just has legacy Republican. It has like legacy better government than California that's holding it all together for now. Okay, so they have some supremely competent people, all right, in charge, but the whole state is basically a diversity freak show at this point. It's
Well,
only
and what happened is California turned into such an absolute shithole. Californian shitbags started moving to Texas at such enormous rates that it was literally the policy at U-Haul to charge twice as much for U-Hauls being rented to move to California as U-Hauls being rented to move from California to Texas, because they basically they knew the trucks were going to come from California, but nobody's moving back to California, so you got to pay a premium if you want to go back to the communist coast, because they need no, I'm sorry, the trucks going back to California were cheaper because the U-Haul couldn't afford to send them all back on their own. They needed suckers to drive their trucks back so they could get them rented back to ship more cancer out of the AIDS coast.
that was a part of it. Okay, but that's not entirely it. Many of those people who fled California probably had learned their lesson. All right, I would be hard. It'd be hard for me to believe that the majority of the people who fled California wanted to recreate the experiment they made in Colorado. Okay, completely destroying a fucking state by moving to it and voting for the same things that caused them to flee. That said, no, it was more to do with the illegal immigration. Okay, and then later on legal immigration. So since 9/11, we've effectively not enforced our border. Okay, and Texas is ground zero for illegal immigration, and a lot of that immigration basically just stayed there. All right, didn't spread across the rest of the country. A lot of it just settled in Texas. So Texas is 40% white. All right, and in the past decade, there have been obscene amounts of legal immigration to Texas, in particular from Islamic countries and from India. All right, the area, the suburbs around Houston are basically India at this point. Okay, Katy, Texas, completely overrun. What was once like a idyllic all American city. Okay, in the 1980s and 1990s. All right, outside of Houston, Houston was always a dangerous, dirty place. Okay, um, yeah, it's been completely overrun with Indian immigrations. They've constructed gigantic statues of like Monkey God, Big Penis Man. All right, like um, outside the city, gigantic pagan idols. All right, um, it's just it, and you've got Governor Abbott, all right, who's a cripple, all right, and I do hold that against him. All right, I don't want cripples in
Hot
charge.
Wheels.
Yeah, I don't. No, I don't. I don't. I'm not inspired. I'm not inspired by women or cripples. All right, in charge of me. Never was. And his they basically it's green line go up, green line go up. That's all that matters. Okay, GDP go up. That's all that matters to the majority of say of the Texas GOP. All right, so yes, green line is going up, but at the cost of the culture and identity of the state itself. So and Governor Abbott is probably the most egregious governor in the country, second only to DeSantis. Unfortunately, I like DeSantis, but he's got a huge blind spot when it comes to Israel. All right, but Texas Governor Abbott has made it so you can't even do business in the state of Texas unless you effectively support Israel. Okay. Um, the his BDS, boycott, divest, sanction legislation, basically will run you out of Texas. All right, unless you actively support Zionism. So Texas's priorities are completely effed up. They have a really good attorney general in Ken Paxton, but yeah, it's kind of like Georgia, okay, in a sense where if you have a political party hold power for too long, it's going to become lazy and corrupted. Okay, like the Georgia GOP, where
Right.
they
If you
had
have a
they
political
held
party hold power for too long, it's going
yeah
to become the
yeah
Democrat Party,
exactly like
like the Georgia GOP.
people talk about states where it's like they're perma blue states, right, and the levels of corruption that exist within their legislature, right, like Minnesota, California, Colorado, Illinois, etc. Right? Well, it's the same thing in red states that are perma-red states. Okay, you get the same level of an endemic corruption, but it's less blatant, but it's still there, and it's still harming um, the political core of that state. So yeah, Texas is done.
The key difference between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party is that the Republicans don't do stuff.
Aaron Olson says the immigrants are a problem because they do not assimilate. I don't want them to assimilate. I don't want them at all. Access to the United States is not an international human right. Access to white people is not a human right. Get the fuck out. Go make your own country great. You don't need us. You don't need our remittances. Anyway, I'm gonna go.
A2Z says research what Thomas Jefferson thought of Muslims, the author of the Constitution of the United States.
Oh, no, he had a special hatred for Muslims.
Do you know why we have a Navy?
Yeah.
A2Z, do you know why we have a United States Navy? Specifically because Muslim pirates were a problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he says David Cross running for GOP chair. He is an improvement, but I don't think he will win. I don't know much about. Sorry, Pitt. Sorry, Danny. I don't know much about David Cross. Maybe we could reach out and get him for a lunch or something.
Aaron Ols, yeah. Look, last thing I'll say in it, because I'm bordering on vicious Fed posting. All right, but yeah, Aaron Olson says immigrants are basically buying $400,000 homes with barely any furniture, correct? Barely any credit history, and that's why they have no credit. They have no credit history, and they're eligible to basically all kinds of small business association loans that are paid for by the federal government. All right, the access to grants and loans that you do not have access to. All right, you have more rights in this country as a legal immigrant than you do as far as conducting business. All right, as far as getting into business, you have more opportunity in this country as an illegal immigrant than you do as a native born citizen. That's fact. All right,
you know what, let me jot down a note real quick that might be worth doing one of our Saturday deep dives on.
And also the fact that basically Hindu and Muslim immigrants, okay, practice extreme nepotism, right? Extreme nepotism.
Yes.
To further their own people's interests. Okay, you add that with chain migration, where every year they're bringing in new people legally. All right, every single year, bringing in a new family member until they're basically a clan. They all pool their money. There's no individuality amongst the people. There's no concept of that rugged individualism that conservatives like to talk about. That doesn't exist. Okay, in the third world.
One of the things we've heard a lot with coming from the Trump campaign and from Trump voters over the last couple of years. I keep hearing conservatives and Republicans saying, "Oh, we're super pro legal immigration. We're worried about illegal immigrants." Wow. Okay, listen. And then, of course, you get the talking points about you got to be worried about illegal immigrants because they vote illegally, they get Social Security benefits, they get welfare benefits, they're drained on the system, their kids go to our public schools. And even if they're not actually voting, there's no question on the census about your immigration status. So California, New York, and a few other blue states, they actually have extra House representatives and extra illegitimate electoral college votes because of their populations as reflected with the illegal immigrants there. But y'all, legal immigrants, right? There is a place for legal immigrants. There is value to be had from legal immigrants, but the vast majority of legal immigrants coming from third world countries like India, right? Fuck Dubai. India is a third world country, but still practices institutional generational slavery and has some of the most egregious poverty in the world. India, China.
Highest level of child rapes within the family. Okay,
Yes,
that's an ugly one. People don't talk
the
about.
legal immigrants that come from these third world countries like India and China and all of this, right? They are an enormous drain on the taxpayer because they essentially get free money forever to open their little gas stations. And we like I said, this may be one that's worth a Saturday deep dive on how you come here and you get a loan that you never pay back. Right? It's an amazing scam. And we're importing parasites to steal our money.
Yep.
So, oh, excuse me. So let's actually get back to this a bit. So
yeah, Epic City, right? Okay.
Right. So the Epic City claim is that they will be essentially they're trying to build a Muslim only city that will be ruled by Sharia law. Back in 2020 we had another one. I can pop this article up real quick. You remember hearing about Freedom, Georgia, Mario?
No.
Okay. 19 families buy 97 acres of land in Georgia to create a city safe for black people. Safe for black people. It's just racial segregation. And hey, you know what? Cool. If y'all want to move away and go be your own thing, that I'm actually okay with. It's a little psychotic because the claim here is that they need to go to a place that's only black, that's all black, in order to be safe. It's like, have you seen what crime statistics are? Because where it's all black, it's not safe.
I would totally understand it if they basically were just honest about it. And they're like, look, we need to segregate ourselves from a significant segment of the other black people. Okay. Because we're not safe. Like, I get it. I totally get it. And I mean, if that's what you want to do, fine, go ahead.
Yeah, and I've often said it must be very difficult to be a, reasonable, intelligent, educated, successful black American man. Sit down at the table in the morning with a cup of coffee, maybe a bagel with some schmear, whatever. You turn on the news and you see 1,000 young sociopaths, all black, with hoodies, rampaging through a mall, smashing windows, doing flash mob robberies of Apple stores and K jewelry, because that's a thing that's happening now. And I'm sure if you worked your ass off to buy your McMansion and start raising a whole passel of youngins, and you might even be retired military, moved into the corporate sector and doing great. And you turn on the TV and oh, well, there they are. There they are. And I know that every time I walk out of my house, at least some part of the country is going to look at me and say, well, there's one of those. And statistically, you're not wrong to think that.
I mean, I've made no secret of it on this program, but I'm very, very distrustful and critical, okay, of black Americans, right? For empirical reasons, for lived reasons, okay? My racism is not just because I looked at them and didn't like them. It's because I've grown up with them, all right? I've had basically just the majority of my experiences with black people have been negative, okay? That said, I can't imagine how depressing it would be to be like a classically educated, hardworking black man who grew up in a household where discipline was enforced, and to look around at the rest of your cohort. I can't imagine a more depressing fate. So I do have sympathy for those.
You remember when we were at DLI, at Alpha Company? I'm not talking about Hobley with the big Hobleys. There was I think it was Staff Sergeant Scott, the big tall black drill sergeant that we had at Alpha Company.
The Special Forces washout, the psycho?
No, that was Hobley.
Yeah.
That,
Okay.
that was the Bravo Company guy. No, at Alpha
Yeah.
Company. Scott was rock solid. I think his name was Scott.
I
He
don't
was he
remember.
was rock solid. Well, anyway, you lent me a copy of the book "Stupid Black Men" by Larry Elder. Remember?
Yeah.
And it was sitting on my desk in my barracks room when Sergeant Scott came through for inspections one time. And he called me into his office, with the book on his desk, and he looked at me. He's like, "Really, Lowry? Really?" And all I said was, "Have you read it, Sergeant?" And he looked at me like, "Why would I read?" It was a black man that wrote it, Sergeant. Black Republican,
Mm-hmm.
right? I dare you. And he held on to it. He read it, and we had a long conversation about it because he basically said, "Okay, it's that stuff. It's Bill Cosby before the rape, right?" And yeah, it was. And that's something, when I talk about, it must be difficult to be a successful, intelligent, educated black man in America because you turn on the news and, oh, it's another flash mob. That Scott was one of those guys that probably looks at the news and says, Jesus Christ, how do I keep my kids from getting convinced by some communist, from some queer commie teacher at a public school, that this is how you behave, that this is correct behavior? And it's a difficult question to answer. So and after that conversation, I'm sure we're still live on Rumble, but I can't promise anything about YouTube. I seem to have run real short on YouTube comments.
Oh well. Well, I mean, it's a tough one, really, because I mean, if you look at basically race, IQ, and aptitude, okay, you look at white people on a bell curve, right? At the highest end, of course, they're going to be very successful unless the system's gamed against them, and at the lowest level, basically, you've got people who are going to some people, a segment of that population might be in and out of jail, okay, but largely it's just going to be working class people who are living paycheck to paycheck, okay. Now, when you take that same bell curve with black people, yes, on the highest end, of course, those people are going to be successful. In fact, they're going to be even more successful because of DEI and affirmative action programs than their white counterparts, okay. But if you look at the people on the wrong end of the spectrum, with a black bell curve, where we're talking about a standard deviation difference, that's the difference between civilization and no civilization, okay.
Correct.
The worst of the black people simply cannot exist in a civilized society. They're not made for Western civilization. They cannot function. All right. That's like and it's a huge number of them. Okay. What is it, like 33% of all black people have felonies, have been to prison? That's nuts. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's a whole. So, but my point here, if I agree with what you were alluding to earlier. I think this is a group of blacks like the ones that I was talking about. The holy shit, there they go again. That said, you know what? We're done. We're just getting out of there. Now,
yeah,
I do want to point this out. They talk about the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor at the hands of the police. So at least part of this maneuver was motivated by the just straight sociopathic dishonesty of the media that told all blacks in America, hey, by the way, the police are murdering 10,000 unarmed black men every year. And we're like, oh my God. And we've covered this in detail on the show before. In 2020, I think there were 9. I think we covered it in 2020 and had to use 2019 statistics. It's been a while since we did that deep dive, but there were like 9 quote unquote unarmed black men who were killed by police. And all of those quote unquote unarmed black men were stories where, he was driving a car. Like, I think 3 of them were driving a car or a pickup truck and trying to ram the police officers with the vehicle when they were shot. Right. There was one where there were a few where the unarmed black man was on top of a police officer, like ground and pound, got him down and beating them to death with their bare hands. And they were listed as, unarmed black man killed by police. Like, well, he's in the middle of murdering somebody with his fists. So they shot him. Right. So these guys have been done an enormous disservice by the Democrat Party, the media, and other black people. I don't think you can say quite the same for the Muslims that are trying to build a segregationist city in Texas. I think they have been radicalized largely by, Islam generally and American academia.
Yep. Yeah, you could say American academia. But anyway, if you wanted to get back into the story article, Aaron Olson, he said, what do we do? What do we do for these people? I've seen the same things. What do we do with these people? Well, you sterilize.
It's interesting that he first asked, what do we do for those people? And then asked, what do we do with these people?
He's coming from an area of compassion. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
What do you sterilize them? That sounds radical, but we were sterilizing people up until the early 1960s in this country, in exchange for benefits. All right. If you're going to be basically a perpetual client of the welfare state, you have to be sterilized. That's how it works. That's how it used to work in this country. You can do it again.
Yeah.
Just cut the bad genes off at the source. Do not let the weeds grow. That's how you deal with it.
Right.
Anyway,
I'm actually pretty comfortable with that. I mean, that's what do you God, I wish Cameron was on here and have him talk about. There are certain kinds of pesticides that don't kill the pests. They interrupt the breeding cycle.
So fumigate every black household with copious amounts of Monsanto Roundup.
Well, you know what? In fairness, we're already doing that. So I guess the thing to do is just let them keep buying the red dye number 12 or whatever it is. Oh, you want your candy bars? Here, this one's got tartrazine. That would be the yellow dye number something or other. Is just it's coal tar derivative. Get you some.
All right, back to the article. I got to pull myself back from a genocidal ideation. So,
okay, that's that one. Let's go back to this article. Oh, okay. So there's precious little information to really dig into on that, but I wanted to compare it to the story of Freedom, Georgia, and I also want to mention, these two. The whole thing with balkanization and voluntary self-segregation, there's a lot going on with land in this country. And amid it is, we've talked about the BlackRock scandal stuff. We've talked about
Bill Gates,
the modern American housing crisis that's a result of that scandal. How much have you heard? How much have you studied or read up on, Mario, the Chinese buying up farmland? It's not just the whole Chinese buying farmland and it's close to military bases. Yeah. A lot of the pot farms in like Colorado are owned by Chinese, and not just corporations. Yeah. This specifically like Chinese mafia, Chinese organized crime, and they're doing a lot of their labor is handled with illegal immigration, and basically they're sending money back to China. They're expatriating U.S. dollars and importing Chinese supplemental drugs like fentanyl, to exacerbate the damages of drug use in America.
Yeah, they have large grow operations in Maine as well. It's a particular scandal there. But yeah, one of the stupid things we do in this country is we allow foreign nationals to buy real estate. Okay, that shouldn't I mean, unless you've got a highly controlled mechanism to allow that to be done like safely in a way that doesn't compromise national security, that shouldn't even be legal, right? Because due to the volatility of the Chinese economy and Chinese stock market, wealthy Chinese people for decades have been traveling to, at first primarily to in British Columbia in Canada, all right, and buying real estate as a way to protect their wealth. All right, they do the same thing in the United States. They come here, buy real estate as a hedge against basically currency manipulation practiced by the Chinese Communist Party, right? And then that's a threat to national security, and plus it increases the cost of real estate for everyone else when you have the entire world allowed to basically do speculative investing in the United States real estate market. Okay, it's insane, and it's like I was saying earlier. Okay, green line went up. That's all that matters. Like, no, that's not what matters. A country is not GDP. A nation is not its GDP. A nation is a group of people with a shared culture and a shared history. Okay, it's not an economic output. Um, so, but can't can't change it at this point. Okay, it's like it reminds me of that movie Scarface. Okay, where you got Tony Montana sitting there at the table with his brother, right, looking out over Miami before he became a drug lord, and he's like, I look at this country and I see a giant pussy waiting to be fucked. Okay? That's what the United States is. It's a giant pussy waiting to be fucked. All right? By anyone by
Jesus
anyone
Christ.
by anyone with money, anyone with money who can get into the country. Or anyone without money who can get access to basically multi-tiered loan structures that are not available to the average citizen.
Yeah.
So it's a joke. Been a joke for a long time.
Yep. Um,
Damn, that was
brother, I
black.
think so. What?
Damn, that was black pilled.
Yeah. 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 We got a little down the darker of the rabbit holes.
I've been kind of dark this week. We need to do a happy show for Mario. We
Okay.
need to talk about
I'll look for a happy show for tomorrow.
Mario needs happy things. Okay, for Thursday.
I'll see if I can find you some happy. So, all right. Well, I guess we've kind of petered out on that note. I'm going to go ahead and y'all bear with me just a minute. I'm going to try one more time to raid the same show that we tried to raid yesterday, just because I want to get my head around this thing, because I think it's a powerful tool and we should be taking advantage of it. Let me see if I can find Homeboy. There he is. And I'm going to attempt this right now.
Aaron Olson lives in the Dallas area, so thank you for those comments. Sorry we didn't get deeper into that, but basically 450 plots were sold out. All right, within the first few days it went on the market. All right, and it is in one of the more demographically like white areas. Okay, of the Dallas metro area, north Dallas. Right, so of course they need to plant themselves right in the middle. Okay, of the white people because for some reason brown people cannot prosper on their own. They require access to white people to prosper for some reason. I guess they need access to to our infrastructure. Um, and yeah, I don't know how. The problem is it's legal. It's essentially legal what they're doing unless you can catch them on violations of like the 14th Amendment, okay, the Civil Rights Act. That's the mechanism you have to use to kind of shut down operations like this. This is not the first time there's been a Muslim separatist community in the country. There's a really famous one called Islamburg, okay, or Jihadburg in New York. That's been a problem for New York State troopers for, gosh, at least a decade. Mostly it was black Muslim separatists, but yeah, it's creation of foreign spheres of foreign culture insulated, all right, from the surrounding community, and they have no interest of maintaining whatever whatever ground they have. Okay, they have no interest of staying within the confines of their Sharia land. They're always going to be looking to expand outwards. Okay, and you've got a lot of Muslims in other states that are moving to Texas, wanting to be a part of this community. So anyway, thanks for your comments, Aaron.
Yeah, and I mean, there's the link. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. That I don't appear to have actually initiated the raid. Doesn't appear to have worked. So, guys, if y'all know what I'm doing wrong, tell me, because I'm looking at, like, Mario. What am I missing here? Right, here's the thing.
I don't
How
even
to use
really
the Rumble
understand.
Raid feature. Designed with creators in mind, exciting addition that powers users to transfer people to live streams. Rumble's raid feature amplifies communities. Quick notes. Currently, you can only raid once every 10 minutes. Only URLs of live streams. Okay, this is a live stream that I'm trying to raid. Maybe there's something in my account settings that I need to change. Copy the URL of the live stream you want to send your viewers to.
Maybe you're just sending a beacon to another chat. Maybe it doesn't actually transfer anything. Maybe it requires the actual audience to do it themselves.
No, I know that's not it.
Oh, okay.
Because I've seen it. I've seen other shows successfully use the feature. Let me try this. I'm going to use their share link instead of the straight URL. Maybe that's what I'm doing wrong.
Chris, do we know Aaron Olson IRL or no?
I'm actually not sure, because I know an Aaron Olson IRL from DLI, and this Aaron Olson who has started watching the show, I'm talking to you, Aaron. I don't know if this is the Aaron Olson that we know from then, or if this is just an Aaron Olson that joined the show. I frankly, I don't know. I'm sorry, brother. Let us know if you remember us from the Presidio, then that would be pretty interesting. Okay, so I'm not the DLI one, because you remember Olson, right?
Yeah, faintly, yeah.
Okay, yeah, he just found us one morning on YouTube. That's good. So yeah, I mean, this says, as the channel owner or a moderator, you know what? Hey, Pitt Danny, I'm going to promote you to moderator. Nope, I don't know how to do that. Okay, fine.
Oh my gosh.
Son of a bitch.
Bro, do you even Rumble?
Apparently not. But I mean, it says, as the channel owner, enter the chat command /raid into the chat box. So slash.
I'm a Luddite. I'm a Luddite. I can't help you. So you're on your own.
And paste the URL. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe it's that /raid enter. Nope. This is what it says to do, and nothing's happening. So
is there supposed to be a colon between RAID and HTTPS?
Apparently not. Not that I see.
Maybe are you supposed to put brackets around the HTTPS? Try putting brackets around it. Is it supposed to make a hyperlink? Is it supposed to do something?
Yeah, it's supposed to. You see right here, it's supposed to pop this up and say, please review the raid details, and then it should ask me to confirm the raid. And then once it does that, everybody else should get this pop up that says we're raiding, the next guy, and they can click join or ignore.
I don't know. It's probably some simple command you're missing. You might have to I don't know. Watch a video on it. I'm sure it exists.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look something up. All right.
Yep.
So yeah, if y'all want to go check that,
Dude,
y'all want to go check out that link. I'm gonna go watch him for a little while.
Excuse me, unverified. We are proto millennials. Okay, you're on notice. You're on notice. You didn't have a license to make that comment, unverified. You didn't.
Damn, son. All right. Thanks for watching this morning, guys. And you know, the ad read earlier, I'm going to be doing the ad reads because they pay me for it and I like money. All right. It's that simple. So y'all be safe out there. We love you and we will see you tomorrow.